All right. All right, so this is the 8th and final session here on the studying of Lord Chaitanya's Siksastaka prayers. We're going to finish up today. There's, as you probably understand, there's 2 verses left. We wanted to focus especially on the 3rd verse, and so we took a little extra time on that. So these last 2 verses also work well together because they're both about Krishna Prema. That's the stage of Krishna Prema that we're at. And so Prema, according to the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, has 2 unique characteristics. Prema, or transcendental love. It's one of them is Sandrananda, or a special type of condensed bliss. So there's happiness in Krishna consciousness from early on, but this is this very special, super condensed form of happiness that's characteristic only of Krishna Prema. We heard that there's Kleshagni and Shubhada, the removal of all miseries and the beginning of all auspiciousness that's characteristic of sadhana bhakti. That carries forward. It remains a characteristic of bhava bhakti, but then it's rarely achieved, and it's the other one is that it takes liberation very lightly, moksha lagu kriti. And then in prema, those things also continue up into prema. All those other 4, but 2 unique ones are added, this Sandrananda. And the way that it's described in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu is the bliss of Brahman realization accumulated by samadhi, lasting for half of Brahma's life, cannot compare to 1 drop of the ocean of the happiness of prema. That's Rupa Goswami's explanation from the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And then the other one is Sri Krishna Karshini. It attracts Krishna and his associates. This is the Krishna Karshini means attracts Krishna. And Jiva Goswami says the Sri also refers to his associates. This prema is something, this love is something that attracts both Krishna and his associates. And Rupa Goswami defines it. He says prema is called Sri Krishna Karshini because it makes the Lord addicted to prema and brings him under control along with his associates. And as an example of how this prema attracts Krishna, there's this section I have here from the Madhurya Kadambini. It's in the prema section, chapter 8. And this is Krishna speaking here. This is Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has Krishna speaking in this way. In payment for all your sacrifice, Krishna speaking to his devotee, I cannot give you anything. I have become your debtor. And we've been talking about this indebtedness, that is a real powerful feature of bhakti, even to the highest levels. Since lordship over the whole earth, taking the post of demigod, and acquisition of mystic powers are unsuitable to you, how can I give them to you? And why are they unsuitable? He says, one cannot give grass and straw, the enjoyment of cows, to any human being. So he says these things would be unworthy reciprocations for their love for Krishna. So then Krishna says, though I am unconquerable, I have just now been conquered by you. I live for you and dance for you. I am hanging on to the creeper of your good qualities for support. So this is Krishna's sentiment towards someone who has Krishna prema. It says when one in the stage of asakti, he says the mirror of the heart is polished so nicely that you can see a reflection of Krishna there. In bhava, you have also an internal experience of Krishna called a spurti. This kind of sounds like it is kind of like it sounds. It appears in the heart, and it's oftentimes momentarily, and then disappears again. So it's at the stage of prema, not immediately, but after some time, one gets to see Krishna face to face with one's eyes, spiritual eyes, but it's still face to face. And this interaction takes place, something like this. Okay, so anyway, we'll pick up where we left off with well, actually no, this is a description here in Anchilita 18, chapter 18 of prema. This shows what the devotees are experiencing. And it says, and so that we had first how it attracts Krishna, and then how, here's a little bit something about how the Sandrananda is, and also how prema attracts the devotees. And so here in Ancha-lila, chapter 18, text 15, it says, even Lord Krishna is struck with wonder at seeing the transformations of ecstasy. The word here, is prema vikara, in his devotees. If Krishna himself cannot estimate the limits of such emotions, how could others? So prema is a very powerful thing. And then it continues in the next two verses, 16 and 17. Krishna himself cannot fully understand the conditions, the mode of progress, the happiness and unhappiness, and the moods of ecstatic love of his devotees. He therefore accepts the role of a devotee to taste these emotions fully. That's Lord Chaitanya. He wants to experience that. So far out to be able to experience prema. So even he wants to experience it. So how fortunate would be our devotees to be in that position. In 18, he says, ecstatic love of Krishna. This is similar to what we heard in the definition. Ecstatic love of Krishna makes Krishna and his devotees dance. And it also dances personally. In this way, all three dance together in one place. Because prema is, it's love, so it takes others, so then you have to bring them together so their love can exist. This is why Krishna isn't just one, a homogeneous one. He wants to have love. And then it says, one who wants to describe the transformation of ecstatic love, and this is all means prema, of Krishna is like a dwarf trying to catch the moon in the sky. So this is well beyond our current ability to comprehend. We can just hopefully get a little bit of an impression about it. And as the wind can carry away but a drop of the water in the ocean, a living entity can touch only a particle of the ocean of love of Krishna. And then one further, he says, endless waves arise moment after moment in that ocean of love. How could an insignificant living entity estimate their limits? And so what happens also, in the stage of Baba, we had this, people would be able to now embody and feel their eternal relationship with Krishna in the various moods. As a servant, as a friend, as a parent, or as a lover. They would have, and this is usually called a sthayi bhava, a steady emotion, a steady connection. And as prema hits, there's this deeper development of rasa. And rasa generally means, more specifically means, when there's like this overwhelming kind of absorption. We know that even in a sakti, there was an addiction to Krishna, so there was, very, very powerful attachment and focus on Krishna. In the stage of Nishta, earlier on the third verse, there was, a certain pretty consistent remembrance of Krishna. But, the sakti was getting very powerful. In bhava, it was incredibly intense absorption in Krishna. But there are certain, and this is how the lila works. Why Krishna is doing all these various things is that things in the lila help to trigger a flaming up or an intensification of that feeling of love. And I'm just giving you an example here from the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam with Akrura. This is Akrura, who is riding, he was taking his chariot to pick up Krishna and Balaram to take him back to Mathura, where Kamsa was supposed to try to kill him. So Shukadev Goswami continued, my dear king, while the son of Shwapalka, that's Akrura, traveling on the road, thus meditated deeply on Krishna, he reached Gokul as the sun was beginning to set. So all this through the travels, it said he was so absorbed in remembering Krishna. I think it's Sanatan Goswami says that he wasn't even aware of the road. He was just meditating so deeply on Krishna. He was a very advanced devotee, and actually had prema. And so then it says, in the cowherd pasture, Akrura saw the footprints of those feet whose pure dust the rulers of all the planets in the universe hold on their crowns. Those footprints of the Lord, distinguished by such marks as the lotus, barleycorn, and elephant gold, made the ground wonderfully beautiful. So then suddenly he sees Krishna's Krishna's footprints in the dust of Braj. So he's already absorbed in Krishna, but look what happens. He's increasingly agitated by ecstasy at seeing the Lord's footprints. His bodily hair is standing on end because of his pure love, and his eyes filled with tears. Akruta jumped down from his chariot and began rolling about among those footprints, exclaiming, "Ah, this is the dust from my master's feet." So things happen that will then make it like fully absorbing. Even already, he said he was so absorbed that he wasn't noticing the road that somehow got there. But then, something happens. You see, some experience happens. Like Mother Yashoda sees Krishna, in wrapped in the coils of Kaliya. It just sends their love into a whole new, fully absorbing dimension. And so this is what's happening more in prema. They're getting more and more intensity, and these flaring up where it becomes very, very powerful and intense. So today we've got the two verses, verse 7 and 8. And so there are two flavors of prema. Verse 7 is love and separation and vipralamba. And verse 8 is love and union, sambhoga. So enjoying together. Okay. And so here we're going to pick up with the Chaitanya Charitamrita, chapter 20. He's where he's just spoken and reflected upon the 6th verse, and now he's going to lead up into the 7th. Separation from Krishna awoke various mellows. This is in rasa, also is the word, of distress, lamentation, and humility. Again, humility never stops. This is remember Bhaktivinoda Thakur said this is an intrinsic part of bhakti. Thus Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu spoke like a crazy man. And then he speaks the verse. This is verse 7. Yugayatam nimishena chakshusha pravashayatam shunyayatam jagat sarvam govinda virahena me. Yugayatam appearing like a yuga, a millennium. Nimishena like a moment. It's like literally a blink of an eye. It's just a blink of an eye feels like a yuga. And then chakshusha from the eyes, tears falling like rain. And shunyayatam, like shunya is like void or empty. The whole world is become jagat. The world becomes empty, and by my separation. So the Prabhupada's translation in the Chaitanya Charitamrita is, "My Lord Govinda, because of separation from you, I consider even a moment a great millennium. Tears flow from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I see the entire world as void." And then he reflects on that as he has been doing here, as he was reciting these verses, and then he would say some things reflecting on what he just recited, Lord Chaitanya. And he says, "In my agitation, a day never ends, for every moment seems like a millennium. Pouring incessant tears, my eyes are like clouds in the rainy season. The 3 worlds have become void because of separation from Govinda. I feel as if I were burning alive in a slow fire." And now, one thing we have to remember, okay, because we've been, as devotional service has advanced, it becomes more and more about Krishna. And so when we think of both enjoyment and separation, it's very different than our conventional material usages of those words. You see, like Krishna, when we think of Krishna as the supreme enjoyer, what usually I think flashes to our minds, or often does, is we think, oh yeah, Krishna, he can take many forms. He can create anything he wants. He can controls everything. He has everybody who loves him. So he's got all of this different things. He can create all kinds of adventures. He can create other universes if he wants. So he can have all this enjoyable stuff. And so it's unlike us, who we have to deal with unpleasantries that we can't avoid. We're not in control. We have to make endeavors to acquire enjoyable things. So we think of enjoyment in the way that we experience enjoyment, and so we think of Krishna as this as person who could do that in a huge way. But when we understand that it's possible for the soul to be self-satisfied in all the enjoyable things, all enjoyable material things, or even, other types of external things, don't have meaning in that situation, then we have to understand that Krishna's enjoyment is different, and the devotee's enjoyment is different. Prema is a different thing. It's about love, and it's about the as we'll see, the happiness of the other. It's a whole different dynamic than we have. So that when we say spiritual enjoyment, it's a different thing, and so also the separation is different. And the separation will, you see, the Leela has this alternating separation and meeting, separation and meeting, and it's what drives the love higher and higher and higher. It's this engine that increases it. It says, the pastimes are ever fresh, and the happiness is ever increasing. There's a place in the Chaitanya Charitamrita where Krishna, it says that at any one time, Krishna can know the limits of his bliss, and then he exceeds those limits. And that one of the powerful driving forces of this is separation. So it's happening when we feel distress at separation from something. We feel grief, we've lost something, we've lost someone, we're missing somebody. That means our happiness is gone. But the happiness of the sort that we're used to, it's gone. This person was giving me pleasure, and now, or this thing was giving me pleasure or security or love, something, and now it's gone, and I feel this tremendous emptiness. It's interesting. They say the world, here they don't say that they feel empty, but the world feels empty. Because remember, even at the stage of bhava, the whole thing was in the character. One of the main characteristic features is that it's an intense desire to please Krishna. Prema, this is taken to a whole new level. And so when there's separation, it's not that, oh, here's my enjoyable object that's missing, but now my whole world is about making Krishna happy, and he's not here. How can I do that? This is the distress. And so the world seems empty because you can't, there's nothing there that you can interact with in doing what you want to do most. You can't make Krishna happy. And doing something from a distance isn't going to work in this stage. Like here we can serve Krishna in various ways from a distance and chant Hare Krishna and think of him. That's all very nice for our level, but for them, they need to be closer to Krishna to really fulfill their desire to please him. And so in this way, what's happening when the separation is happening is that there's this building up of this desire to please. It's just, it has no way to express itself. And so it's just increasing, like you dam up a river, and it's just building and building and building and building and building. And when they finally meet, boom, it's like the floodgates open. And so there's a higher level of intensity of wanting to please Krishna than before. And Krishna, of course, reciprocates with that. And so there's when the separation is occurring, it's this buildup of the desire to please Krishna. It's different from, oh, I've lost Krishna, he makes me happy. No, it's like my only happiness is to please Krishna, and he's gone. So how can I do that? And so it's a terrible, it's like it says, I'm burning alive, because they have that desire that to please Krishna that can't be fulfilled. It's inverse of what we usually do. It's quite a different thing. And then he begins to shift towards the next verse. Since here he's speaking with the voice of Radharani. Lord Krishna has become indifferent to me just to test my love. And my friends say, better to disregard him. Lalita, and then they say like that. So he's beginning, Lord Chaitanya, of course, is Krishna and Radha combined. And, here he's eventually he's tasting the mood of Srimati Radharani. The next verse is fully spoken in the mood of Radharani. And here it says, the next verse in Chaitanya Charitamrita, while Srimati Radharani was thinking in this way, the characteristics of natural love became manifest because of her pure heart. The ecstatic symptoms of envy, great eagerness, humility, zeal, and supplication all became manifest at once. In that mood, the mind of Srimati Radharani was agitated, and therefore she spoke a verse of advanced devotion to her Gopi friends. So this is the mood in which this last verse of the Siksastakam was composed. It was Lord Chaitanya was feeling the mood of Radharani, and he was as if he was speaking to her friends. And it says, in the same spirit of ecstasy, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu recited that verse. And as soon as he did so, he felt like Srimati Radharani. So when he recited again, he was again in deep contact with his mood of Srimati Radharani. This is why one of the main reasons why he appears in this world. Appears as Lord Chaitanya. And so that then is the verse itself. Yes, this is the 8th verse. Aslishyava padaratam penashtumam makarshanan marma atam korotuva yatatata vidadatu lampato matprananatastus evana paraha. And then the translation. So this verse in particular is more vivid and more graphic than the translation that Prabhupada gave like early on. That's pretty common. So he really digs down into the verse more deeply, and makes it a little bit more vivid. So the Aslisha is embracing with great pleasure, or Padaratam, who have fallen at the lotus feet. So Radharani is at their feet. Pinashtu, let him trample me, Adarshanath, by not being visible, Marmahatam, brokenhearted. And this marma also is like a place where you can be mortally wounded. It's like the heart is one of them, a vulnerable place in the body. So in one sense, it's almost like being mortally wounded. Karotu, let me make, as he likes, right? He's a Vedatu, let him do. Lampati, he's a debauchee who mixes with other women. And then Mat Prananata, see, my prana, life force. He's the Lord of my life, or my life force. And him only, not Pradhan, not anybody else. So this is a verse of prema in the mood of Srimati Radharani, which is the highest level of prema. So this is very, very deep and powerful verse. And then there's he gives a long explanation. Radharani, Lord Chaitanya as Radharani reflects on it after reciting it, and it gets he really breaks it down. And so we're going to read through the rest of the chapter basically, because there's no really other way to do it. There's no better way to explain it than Radharani does herself here. Lord Chaitanya is Radharani. And so she says, or he says, let Krishna tightly embrace this maidservant who has fallen at his lotus feet. This is the translation, or trample me or break my heart by never being visible to me. So this is like, this is he can lift, she's at his feet, he can reach down, lift her up and embrace her, or he can just trample her, just walk all over her. Just very, very vivid and graphic even. And then he can be in her, he can leave her for other women, so she can't see him. He's a debauchee and can do whatever he likes, but still he alone and no one else is the worshipable Lord of my heart. Even life is the word in the Sanskrit. So it's very powerful. There's as in one of the main recordings of Prabhupada, one of the main CDs. There's a purport to one of the bhajans that he sings, and he says that Radha and Krishna, there's a difference between transcendental love and material love. He says is that the relationship with Radha and Krishna never breaks. He says here, something can happen to break the relationship. He says even if there's cause, he says it never breaks. And so this is even in this mood is coming through very strongly in this verse. So we can go through the explanation. Various verses here that explain and reflect upon that verse that Lord Chaitanya in the mood of Radharani speaks there in the presence of Ramananda Roy and Swarup Damodar, probably in the Gambhira. It says, I'm a maidservant at the lotus feet of Krishna. He is the embodiment of transcendental happiness and mellows. If he likes, he can tightly embrace me and make me feel oneness with him. Or by not giving me his audience, he may corrode my body, my mind and body. Nevertheless, it is he who is the Lord of my life. Then 49 says, my dear friend, talking to one of her Gopi friends, just hear the decision of my mind. Krishna is the Lord of my life in all conditions, whether he shows me affection or kills me. You see, that's Marmahatam was like, killing me affection or kills me by giving me unhappiness. Right? Because it's killing if she can't please him. And then she goes on, she says, sometimes Krishna gives up the company of other gopis and becomes controlled mind and body by me. Thus he manifests my good fortune and gives others distress by performing his loving affairs with me. I mean, Radharani, in some sense, understands that she is the one who gives Krishna the most pleasure. And then she continues, says, or since after all, he is a very cunning, obstinate debauchee with a propensity to cheat, he takes to the company of other women. He then indulges in loving affairs with them in front of me to give distress to my mind. Nevertheless, he is still the Lord of my life. So we're going to see, we have that situation in the Bhagavatam, where after Krishna has left to Mathura, that Radharani has the conversation with the bee who she sees as Krishna's messenger. And she's, expressing, seeming anger at him because, thinking that because of his nature to be attracted to girls and to women, he may be really caught up with the sophisticated city girls in Mathura and have forgotten the simple village girls there in Vrindavan. And so she seems like, she's angry in a conventional way. But it's quite different. Actually, it's quite different. And we'll see from these following verses. She says, I do not mind my personal distress. I only wish for the happiness of Krishna, for his happiness is the goal of my life. However, if he feels great happiness in giving me distress, that distress is the best of my happiness. So when she's thinking of him in Mathura, right, she's thinking that he's got this weakness for women and girls, and so he may be caught up there and neglect her and the gopis who give him the greatest happiness. And so she's frustrated with him in that way. That the foolish guy, he's not as happy as he could be if he were with us. And we'll see how she explains it further. This is the purport to that verse. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says that a devotee does not care about his own happiness and distress. He is simply interested in seeing that Krishna is happy. And for that purpose, he engages in various activities. That the bold is mine here. A pure devotee has no way of sensing happiness except by seeing that Krishna is happy in every respect. If Krishna becomes happy by giving him distress, such a devotee accepts that unhappiness as the greatest of all happiness, because it's giving pleasure to Krishna. And then she goes on, she says, if Krishna, attracted by the beauty of some other woman, wants to enjoy with her, but is unhappy because he cannot get her, I fall down at her feet, catch her hand, and bring her to Krishna to engage her for his happiness. Right, so not only is she forgiving when he goes, but if Krishna will be made happy, she will assist in that, in him being a lampato. Wow, fall at her feet, beg her to come, please come to Krishna. He wants to be happy. And then she says, and this is getting really deep into it. When the beloved gopi shows symptoms of anger towards Krishna, she is very satisfied. Krishna is very satisfied. Indeed, he is extremely pleased when chastised by such a gopi. She shows her pride suitably, and Krishna enjoys that attitude. Then she gives up her pride with a little endeavor. It says that Radharani, has this feeling of man, seeming anger against Krishna, like with the bee, and other times where she rejects Krishna's advances. She resists him. Sometimes under the advice of Lalita, and said, "You just neglect him. He's not treating you well." And so this is very hard to understand when the only purpose is to give pleasure to Krishna, right? You would think that they would do everything Krishna wants, but it's also pleasurable for Krishna, right, to sometimes have to overcome resistance. And so how exactly their minds work, if it can be the action of Yoga Maya that gives them that man, or whether they're aware that this gives pleasure to Krishna, therefore they do it, it's not clear. But so Radharani will do these things where she rejects him. But then she says, not for too long. She says, why does a woman continue to live who knows that Krishna's heart is unhappy, but who still shows her deep anger towards him? So even so, here she says, she is interested in her own happiness. I condemn such a woman to be struck on the head with a thunderbolt, for we simply want the happiness of Krishna. So it's mild. The anger is always mild. And it's just enough to actually to enrich the pastimes where Krishna has to feel that he has to somehow make it up to her. This gives pleasure to Krishna. And then she says, if a gopi envious of me satisfies Krishna and Krishna desires her, I shall not hesitate to go to her house and become her maidservant, for then my happiness will be awakened. So this is that's everything about Radharani, everything about the devotees, especially in Prema, especially in Vrindavan, is all about Krishna's happiness. That is their happiness. That's their whole life, is to make Krishna happy. And Krishna, we already heard how Krishna expresses himself. His whole life is to make them happy. This is Prema. This is divine love. Krishna is my life and soul. Krishna is the treasure of my life. Indeed, Krishna is the very life of my life. I therefore keep him always in my heart and try to please him by rendering service. That is my constant meditation. And so even like she cooks for Krishna breakfast every morning. So sometimes it's not in direct association. But even that service is wonderful for her. I think in a purport there says, like Lakshmi Devi, she worships at the feet of Lord Vishnu. So she's happy even if she can serve him, even if she's not. If it's pleasing to Krishna, then she's there personally, and she's there to for Krishna's pleasure. But otherwise, if she's happy, just happy to serve him, happy to make him happy in whichever way possible. She says, my happiness is in the service of Krishna, and Krishna's happiness is in union with me. For this reason, I give my body in charity to the lotus feet of Krishna, who accepts me as his loved one and calls me his most beloved. It is then that I consider myself his maidservant. Service to my lover is the home of happiness and is more sweet than direct union with him. The goddess of fortune is evidence of this, for although she constantly lives on the heart of Narayan, she wants to render services to his lotus feet. She therefore considers herself a maidservant and serves him constantly. So in one sense, she knows that she gives Krishna the most happiness, but she doesn't have any pride about that. Because you can't deserve Krishna. Krishna is not deservable. If somehow, Krishna takes the greatest pleasure in you, that's some kind of great fortune. And so there's humility there, a softness of heart. And then it says here, these statements by Srimati Radharani show the symptoms of pure love for Krishna tasted by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In that ecstatic love, his mind was unsteady. Transformations of transcendental love spread throughout his entire body, and he could not sustain his body and mind. And the pure devotional service of Vrindavan is just like the golden particles in the river Jambu. In Vrindavan, there is not a trace of personal sense gratification. It is to advertise such pure love in this material world that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has written the previous verse, the verse 8, and explained its meaning. So again, so Krishna's, he's the supreme enjoyer because he has the supreme type of enjoyment. No trace of personal sense gratification. He's developed this is the best thing that can be, and we're invited to participate in that. So I want to talk a little bit about, because here Lord Chaitanya is not talking just about prema, but he's talking about the prema, well, even the conjugal rasa, but it's the love that's exclusive to Vrindavan. This is, so Lord Chaitanya was revealing this type of love, the Braj, the Baba, the type of prema that's there in Vrindavan. And it's a very particular one. And it's commonly known that the devotees there in Vrindavan don't know that Krishna is God, or it doesn't affect them. Actually, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says they do sometimes know, but it doesn't affect their mood. So you see in with Vasudev and Devaki, you'll see them switching moods. When Krishna is born, they're praying to him and say, "You've come to kill Kamsa." And then almost immediately say, "Well, Kamsa is going to come and kill you. You have to hide your form as Vishnu. Make yourself into a baby." So those things don't make sense, right? But the mood has changed. First, they're realizing that he's God, the Supreme Lord. And so therefore, Kamsa is not a threat. And then they're thinking of him as their child. When Krishna kills Kamsa, they first come to him very respectfully, understanding that he's God. And then he and Balaram speak these sweet words and say how they were such useless sons. They had to run away in fear of Kamsa and hide, and they couldn't do anything for them, their parents. And then they take them on their laps and start sniffing their hair. They change into thinking of them as their children. And then when the residents of Dwarka, residents of Vrindavan, residents of Hastinapur, and the great sages from the higher planetary systems all met at Kurukshetra, and that's not for the battle, but beforehand when there was the eclipse. Right? It says that Vasudev heard the sages explaining that Krishna was God. And when they returned to Dwarka, Krishna would, as always, would come in the morning and offer obeisances to his father. And Vasudeva says, "No, I know who you are." He didn't want him to offer obeisances. How can God offer him obeisances? And then Krishna spoke some kind of confusing words and softened the mood, and then he accepted him as his son again. But no matter what Krishna did in Vrindavan, even if he did something that even when they kind of knew that he was, after lifting of Govardhan Hill, Nanda Maharaj says, "Well, basically Garga Muni said that he was God, but it can't. This is what happens is, he says, even if they realize he's God, it doesn't break the mood. Like Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur gives the example that he says the mother of an emperor, still thinks of him as her child. She doesn't treat him with any kind of special respect because he's the emperor. And maybe him being the emperor just makes her more proud of her child. And so if somehow it occurs to them he's God, it just makes, "Oh, my son is God. Isn't that wonderful? He's so much more, he's even more wonderful than I thought." It never breaks the mood that he's there, that he's just their friend or their son or their master or their lover. It doesn't break that intimate mood. And then they feel that Krishna needs their service, right? Because if he's God, then well, he can take care of himself. But here they feel that they need to do that, so it intensifies it. But Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur mentions that it works both ways, because Krishna also wants to experience the highest form of love himself. He doesn't want to just be loved in the highest way. So when the devotees, like in the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, Prabhupada says, Mother Yashoda says, "Here, Krishna, eat. If you don't eat, you'll die." She thinks that he's her helpless son, and she has to feed him. And so that allows her love to magnify than if she thinks he's God. He's just the sweetest child. And so her love is more intense, more powerful. So that's beautiful from her side. And also, of course, Krishna can receive that intense love. But Krishna also wants to love with all of his heart. So if he's God, if he's controlling everything, then he can receive that intense love. But how does he love as intensely? And so this is what Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says in his Ragavartma Chandrika. He says, if Krishna is not aware that he is the Lord in Braj, how can the Lord, who is eternally knowledge and bliss in its highest form, have an eternal covering on his knowledge? And he mentions, that in the prayers of Queen Kunti, she mentions how she's amazed that even though he's that fear personified is afraid of him, he's afraid of Mother Yashoda. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that if Krishna's just pretending to be afraid, it's not a mystery. And certainly, Kunti can understand that. But yeah, he's God, but he just pretends to be afraid. But she says, no, she wouldn't be amazed. So that means he's really afraid. So how can he? He's knowledge, he has eternal knowledge and bliss to the highest level. How can this knowledge be covered? What power could do it, right? Because he's the supreme. He's the source of all powers. How can it happen? So he explains, he says, just as avidya, the function of Maya, covers the knowledge of the jiva in order that he experiences suffering in samsara, and just as Yoga Maya, a function of the Chit Shakti, covers the knowledge of Yashoda and others, so for them to love with all their hearts, who are associates of Krishna, though they are beyond the gunas. Okay, so the two types of Maya, Mahamaya covers the conditioned souls, and they get suffering from that. And then the Yoga Maya covers the knowledge of the residents of Braj, so that they don't know he's God, or at least doesn't affect them. And that's in order for them to that so they can experience more deeply the sweetness of Krishna and the pastime, so that it helps them in that way. In order that they experience the happiness of his sweet pastime. So prema, the essence of the Chit Shakti, covers Krishna's knowledge so that he can experience the greatest bliss, which is his very Swarup. See, so the whole purpose of Krishna's life is to be able to love and be loved at this highest level. And so he arranges it himself, basically, is what happens. He says there is no fault in Krishna for such covering. Such prema is his Swarup Shakti. So he's not overcome by an external force, but this is what he's alive for. He wants to be able to also love with all of his heart. And he goes on, he says, in case the jiva under the control of avidya suffers, in any case, the jiva under the control of avidya suffers, Krishna under the control of prema enjoys great happiness. One should consider that when Krishna is overcome with prema, it gives him a special type of happiness, just as the bee derives special happiness being covered by lotus petals. So this is Krishna's way of loving with all of his heart. So like we can understand when you see like the Damodar Leela, where Krishna is hungry and he wants Mother Yashoda to breastfeed him, and she runs away to take care of the milk boiling over. He becomes angry and devastated. Now, if he's God, no problem. He can feed himself, and he is. But if he feels like he's dependent on Mother Yashoda, then he will feel that distress, and then he gets to experience the love that a helpless child has for his mother. It's very much more powerful. So he gets to, and when people are on, when you have some other being that's on a very, very different level, and Krishna's on a very, very different level from everybody, how can you love that being with all your heart? But if you see yourself as a peer, If you see, and so that's also why Krishna likes the man from Radharani, if he has to sometimes overcome her anger. This makes it so much more sweet. And if he can't control everything, right, Yoga Maya arranges so many things, then also it makes things so sweet. He can have the separation. Otherwise, why would he have to be separated? He can take so many forms. He can do so many things. There's a pastime where he spends the night in a tree outside Radharani's house in Yavat, because Jatila, her mother-in-law, is patrolling the area. Well, that doesn't stop Krishna, who's God. He can be invisible. He can have millions of himself, millions of Radharanis. I mean, he can put Jatila to sleep like he does the guards in Mathura. So here in Vrindavan, you can have the most wonderful Krishna, who people don't feel intimidated by. They just think he's their wonderful friend or lover or child. And they feel that they have a real impact on his happiness. And so there's this sweetness and intensity of their love, and Krishna feels that in return. This is the highest level, the highest possible type of existence is arranged by this here in Vrindavan. Well, Krishna is God, but he behaves like a regular being. Vishnu says that when Krishna needs to do something supernatural, then his Leela Shakti reminds him he has certain capabilities. So he can do that. But it's just a way for the pastimes to be so sweet. They're relationships between equals. Although Krishna is the all attractive, he draws all of their hearts. But like Prabhupada says, even in the Gita, that Krishna becomes a devotee of his devotees. So he gets to love with all of his might and heart, and they get to love him with all of theirs. This is and it's all about each other's happiness. There's not any selfishness there. So this is what Krishna, who is the most powerful, the most intelligent, the eternal being, has come up with as the highest state of being. And Lord Chaitanya is bringing that to us through the holy name. And we also may wonder, that sometimes we may be, that there's certainly principal devotees like Radharani and Yashoda. And if we go to the spiritual world, we will not be such close associates of Lord Krishna. Those spots are taken. And so here there's this, in Madhya Lila, there's this interesting series of verses. By nature, Srimati Radharani is just like a creeper of love of Godhead, and the gopis are the twigs, flowers, and leaves of that creeper. When the nectar of Krishna's pastimes is sprinkled on that creeper, the happiness derived by the twigs, flowers, and leaves is 10 million times greater than that derived of the creeper itself. And in the purport, it says, when water is sprinkled on the creeper, the twigs, flowers, and leaves indirectly receive all the benefits of the creeper itself. But water sprinkled directly on the twigs, leaves, and flowers is not as effective as water sprinkled on the creeper's root. The gopis are not as pleased when they directly mix with Krishna as when they serve to unite Srimati Radharani with Krishna. Their transcendental pleasure lies in uniting them. So, one thing I think we have to understand is that another material conception we may bring with us is that even though we're individual in this world, and we're isolated from one another. When one person is happy, I mean, sometimes we even see that if you have somebody who's really, really happy, it kind of lights up the whole room a little bit. But for the most part, when somebody's happy, other people, don't feel it. And so it says that the Radharani's Sakis, sometimes they meet with Krishna, but that's not as pleasing to them, as when Radha and Krishna are together. And they, it says, even when that happens, they're enjoying even more than Radharani. The leaves and the twigs are enjoying a million times more than the trunk, which is Radharani. Because the greatest intensity of love is with Radha and Krishna. Radha is like, another part of Krishna. He's infinite like Krishna. And so that vibe kind of enters into the atmosphere, just like even, sometimes we have, if we have assembly of devotees or something, and it's really nice kirtan, everybody gets raised by the association. So here there's not the kind of false ego that keeps us isolated as well as individuals, individuality. So the whole region of Braj is inundated by the love of Krishna and Radha and Krishna and Yashoda, Krishna and Nanda Maharaj. It just vibrates with it. And so everybody there, and since they're not as infinite as these other persons are, that affects them even more. 10 million times. So everybody wants to cooperate with the service of the most exalted devotees, because that's where the highest bliss comes from, and they feel it even more than if they were to serve Krishna personally or be in association with Krishna personally. So everybody lines up and tries to find whatever spot they can do to find some little service to Krishna. So it's all together. So we won't be something prominent if we go to enter into the Leela, but that won't matter to us. We'll add a little something unique, a little something more. It's already perfect, but it'll be a little bit something more. All right, so we've come to the end. We have the holy name. We see where it ends. Now we have to, soften our hearts a little. We have to become a little more grateful. We have to become a little humble. We have to develop some of those. If we have even a little understanding of what lies ahead, I think we should have a great deal of enthusiasm and patience. It's worth the wait, and it's something really incredible. We shouldn't be so worried about, am I feeling ecstasy in this moment? We should be thinking more about what's available in the longer term, and how fortunate we are to have this opportunity. I think we really have to develop some appreciation and begin to feel at least a little indebted. We see the indebtedness goes all the way to the end. All right, so let me stop the share here and bring you all back into vision. So are there any questions or comments or anything further here in this last session of the Siksastaka? We've gone from faith all the way up to the deepest levels of Krishna prema. Yeah, Sam, go ahead.
Hare Krishna Bhakti. Hare Krishna Giri. Thank you so much for these past 8 weeks. They've been very informative, and I feel like I've learned a lot, and I'm really grateful for the time that you spent enlightening us. And so I guess my question is, I feel like I'm in a place where I'm very stagnant in my Krishna consciousness, and I was a lot more involved, but now I don't feel burned out, but it just feels like I'm not doing enough. And I feel like I'm never, no matter what I do, I never feel like I'm doing enough. And I want to continue to advance, but I feel stuck in this place. And it's I don't read, I feel like I don't read as much as I used to. Like I'm not always engaged in service. It's how do I break out of this funk?
Yeah, well, I think we talked about that what happens, of course, generally is the ego kind of pops into us. We discover Krishna consciousness, and it's really a great, amazing revelation. And we get a certain enthusiasm, and we feel it making a difference in our lives. And then we forget that it's a gift. Like we should always feel like we're not doing enough. That's a really good thing. But if that's making you feel bad about yourself, probably that means that you're thinking that it's possible to do enough to advance. See, what we've received already from Krishna right now is so priceless that we can never repay that. We can never earn that, much less earn advancement. So by feeling that indebtedness, we should have a strong desire to do something, right? It should give us a motivation for action. And so we should feel like I'm not doing enough. I'm not doing enough. But if I'm thinking, yeah, if I do enough, I can do this, right? Then I've disconnected myself from the real value of what it is. I'm starting to think that, yeah, this is something I can earn. I'm special, right? I can deserve this and I can earn it and I can be an exalted devotee someday. And that's the ego speaking. And it's not the feelings of humility and gratitude and these kind of things that are natural things. So we have to, so you just have to switch that just a little bit, right? You don't feel bad about yourself. You're fortunate. You have come in contact with Krishna. Your life is now different forever. Okay. But our problem is we're hard-hearted. So therefore we're not responding enough. And if we just have that mood of responding, then Krishna does all the heavy lifting, right? It's not, even if we, hopefully we act strongly and we want to do a lot, but that doesn't make us advance. That's just expressing our gratitude for Krishna, our appreciation, and then Krishna makes the advancement possible. See, so it's giving Krishna the credit, making us feel indebted. Not that, wow, here's this great thing that's being offered, and I should be working harder so I can achieve it. See, that's an egoistic mentality, right? But if we think, wow, I can never pay this back, I have to do something for Krishna. I'm not doing enough. I'm not appreciative enough. I'm not then we're opening ourselves for Krishna to clear so many obstacles away. We're showing our enthusiasm. We're showing this because we can't reach there ourselves. We can never deserve it. And they never feel, even the people, the highest, Radharani never feels that she has earned it and deserves it. But she, of course, she works even harder. Her whole life energy is pleasing Krishna. So, yeah, I really think, excuse me, I really think the ego reducing the ego is the whole problem. And we'll see it keep popping up and slowing us down, popping up and slowing us down. We have to keep coming back to that notion that we've received a priceless gift simply because we're spirit souls. We don't, and that's nice, but this doesn't, we can't earn that. Who can earn being part of Krishna's, private life? We can't earn it. It's just Krishna's heart is so that he thinks that we're so important. We're not, but he thinks that way. So how can we feel grateful? How can we feel joyful of what we received? I mean, my God. Instead we're thinking, okay, when can I reach the next stage? Right? It's natural. I mean, we all do it, right? Why can I reach the next stage? Let's appreciate what we have right now, and those things will come. And if we don't, they won't come. Very fast.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anything else? Vidagda Prabhu, I see you unmuted. You go ahead if you wish.
Well, hearing about prema, that was interesting how Krishna, he's covered with prema, everybody else yogamaya.
Yeah, because that's his own self.
So
it's something he does to himself.
Right. Well, one thing that got my attention was some of the verses that you showed on the screen, and Radharani's talking. I noticed it's an editorial decision to make caps for, when God is speaking about himself. So when Krishna says me so many times in the Gita, we see the capital M, but in these verses, we're seeing the capital M and Radharani's talking.
Yeah.
and that kind of struck me. And then I realized, okay, this is Lord Chaitanya speaking. So he's Radha Krishna combined.
Yeah.
This is how you get your capital M.
Yeah.
No, it was such a wonderful darshan class. I don't think I want to ruin it. I could bring something up.
Don't think you can hurt anything.
Go for Brenda. Huh?
I don't think
What's
you can
that?
hurt anything. I don't think you can hurt anything.
Well, you
Maybe
don't know
maybe it
me
helps.
very well. I could probably damage anything.
We'll survive.
Okay, so Gopa Vrindapal, good friend. I get to be with him for once a week. One of the points that he makes is there's no falling down from prema. It's not possible. We've heard such wonderful things about prema in the last hour, and it's just hard to imagine someone turning their back on that kind of ecstasy, on that kind of exchange they're having directly with Krishna in Leela. It could be there could be an exception to the rule, but we should hear about it. It would be big news. Yudhisthira, he didn't believe it, and in Bhagavatam, when giant Vijay fell, he just I can't accept. An unalloyed devotee of the Lord fell from that place. And then in the next purport in 7th canto, Prabhupada says, yes, otherwise it is a fact that no one falls down from Vaikuntha. And then, but we have now some ideas circulating that everyone falls down. I don't know how you get there. But after hearing this, all these glorifications of prema, and what there at some point there's not a trace of personal sense gratification in this Leela, not a trace. There's no entrance for Maya there. So anyway, it just crossed my mind, hearing all these wonderful things and thinking, and it really is, if someone can fall down from that plane, that would be a cause of feeling hopeless. If you can fall down from that place, what hope do we have? Right?
Well, we know there's hope. We know there's hope. Yeah, I mean, for me, there's different discussions on this, and this thing. For me, it seems like it's basically academic, and I've never seen like a really fully satisfying one account of what really happens. There still seems to be a question, like even if somehow like we're a little somehow like Siksastaka Shakti is actually a physical place rather than a small amount of internal potency, and we look one way to the spiritual world, and we look down at the dark, nasty material world. And go, hey, let me go there. Let me go there. Even right. That's kind of weird, But in any case, here we know where we are, and we know where we can go.
Right.
And the process is the same. However it happens. There's a place where Prabhupada mentions, I'm trying to find, I had it here where in the Gita he mentioned, oh no, it's not even here. It's not, let me see. Maybe I can find it where he talks about what can I find it? Oh, here we go. It's and this is kind of where I kind of stay. He says let's see. He says this is from Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 3, chapter 26, and verse 23 and 24, the purport. He says, from the status of pure consciousness, so this doesn't say prema or anything, but it's just from the status of pure consciousness. Because it's still whatever comes up with, it's still kind of problematic. He says From the status of pure consciousness, the false ego is born because of misuse of independence. We cannot argue about why false ego arises from pure consciousness. Factually, there is always the chance that this will happen, and therefore one has to be very careful. And so the way I look at it, I just don't think we can understand it very well. I think it's a more complicated thing than our brains can do. And
Yeah, and that's why Prabhupada told us to leave it, not to go there, not to make it.
yeah,
So, but to make it, someone has made it one way, dug their heels in one way and made it an issue
yeah,
to, to find fault with somebody that doesn't go along with that idea.
yeah. And to
And
me,
that's
it
wrong.
just seems
That's
academic.
not following Prabhupada. That's not
Yeah.
following Prabhupada.
Yeah, so
Flat out.
it's just to me, it just seems like it's academic anyway,
Yeah,
So
it's just
here we are.
I'm sure somebody with their fertile mind. Well, you're talking about Vasudeva consciousness, Siksastaka.
Yeah,
That's pure consciousness.
Yeah.
That's our original consciousness. And when we come to the Mahatattva, and I'll tell you, I that part of Jaiva Dharma is actually one of the only places where it kind of talks about this. So like you were saying, that Viraja River, we're going from bank to bank. And I can understand how it happens. It's like this hazy consciousness, and there's some glitter, and it looks like something to enjoy. And instead of this taking the dedicating choice, wholesale dedication, you have this idea of exploitation, and that's what gets you here. And it's not, and it might not be, it could be relatively innocent to where, we exist in the present moment in the wheel of samsara, but it's what starts it off, and that Visuddhisattva consciousness gets contaminated by ahankar, which is a self-centered idea, so you're the center now, you're going to enjoy something, and it just happens that you're going to be enjoying separate from Krishna. So this envy comes, I think it comes later, when you start to get more entangled in the material energy, then you start to oppose this idea of a control over your head, or somebody to be accountable for. But I think it starts out in a not so, it's not a gross, apparent fall down, but it's just a more or less innocent mistake, or, hazy mistake. And that's how it starts. But getting out of that fix, that's another thing, once the ahankar is developed over so many lifetimes, to reverse that and return to this Vasudeva Siddhasattva consciousness. It's not a cheap thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So for me, whatever it is, the method is the same, the destination is the same, and my present location is the same.
Right.
So I just say, hey, let's go.
Right.
I mean, it's fun
anyway.
if you want to think about it. That's all right too. But I don't. People make it like this kind of like really powerful litmus test or something, And it's like, well, look, whatever. I don't think I can fully grasp the whole process.
But it remains that we are mercy cases.
It's what it does.
We are
exactly
fully dependent on the mercy of the Lord.
Exactly.
And the only way to get there is humility and gratitude.
Exactly.
Or even because our existence is eternal. And so just the fact that we're living beings you can't pay that back, and Krishna ultimately wants you to get adjusted so that you enter into that rasa with him, that dance with him.
Yeah. The best thing that could exist. We get to be part of the best thing that's possible to exist.
So
with somebody like Krishna. Yeah.
So ecstasy personified is the third party dancing. We're dancing with Krishna, and
prema, the devotees, and it attracts both Krishna and the devotees, because that's what it takes. It takes two for this love.
Right.
That was pretty powerful. Yeah. So that's what's available to us, and it's really amazing. It's
Anyway, this was great. I hope you can cook up another one, think, you're intelligent, you figure out another, like this was the 8 verses of Siksastaka. There's some other, maybe Das Mula or something, we could go through that with you or something.
Yeah, there'll
Something
be
else.
something more probably, springtime or so. Seems like about the Ananda here.
Wow.
She kind of twists my arm every season or so. So we'll come up with something, but
Do you have a bear pastime where you hibernate during the winter? I mean, there's no breaks. There's no breaks in it. There's no, springtime. I don't know. How are you booked till springtime? That's an interesting proposition.
probably sometime in there, maybe, a couple of months or so, then we'll try to think of something else. Seems like that's kind of we did 3 this year, so far we did 3 this year.
Oh, you did? What were the other ones?
The
What were the other
the
ones?
first one was called, what was it? Let me see. The second one was Taking Shelter, Essence of Bhakti.
Yeah.
Right.
And the other one was Taking Shelter of Krishna.
The Essence of Bhakti. So those are available, like you've given us the recordings. Were they
I can send them
recorded
to you.
all?
Yeah, I can send those to you if you
Yeah,
want.
yeah, I'd like to see them. I'd like to see them.
Okay,
I'd
yeah, I'll
look
send
at
them to you.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you all. Some of you have been here like almost every time, and so that's a commitment, and it's been a pleasure. So, all right, I think we're well over time here, so let me let you all go, and Hare Krishna.
Hare
Shri
Krishna,
Siksastaka ki jai.
Jai.
Yeah, Haribol, Haribol.
See you tomorrow.
Yes,
Hare Krishna.
bye-bye.